I'm back with investigative writer Julie Kelly. We're talking about January 6th. Julie, this has been a Herculean endeavor for you. You were on it right from the beginning. You stayed on it. You're in the courtroom listening to these cases. You report on them as they happened. I mean, you've devoted a chunk of your life to this. Talk about what it's meant to you and why you've done it. It seems like this is something that, I mean, you're at the core outraged by what you see. Talk about the experience as it has changed you.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, this just should not be happening in our country. And what really, I think, upsets me the most on a personal level is watching the government go after very vulnerable people, being gratified at destroying innocent Americans, tearing up their families, having them alienated by their neighbors. One man's church kicked him out because he was there on January 6th. But this just is, this is twisted. There's something really wrong with the people who are doing this. And of course, my heart aches for the Americans who are caught up in this, for their innocent family members, especially their kids. And so it has become not just a professional obligation, but a little bit of a personal crusade too. And so that's really, you know, it's been illuminating in a lot of ways, but I think at the end of the day, and I tell people who call me all the time, their family members or the detainees, defendants themselves, they said, look, at the end of the day, you are going to be exonerated. We are going to get most of the truth of what happened that day. And I just tell them millions of Americans are praying for them every day. And that's really, you know, the most that we can do.
You mentioned the not just the innocence of some of the defendants, but the innocence of all of their families. Debbie and I were interested to learn that there are now, there's a kind of community that's developed among these defendants' families. They talk to each other. They do kind of an inventory of what their needs are. And as you say, some of their lives have been totally wrecked, and they're scrambling to find even basic necessities. I want people to know if there's something that they can do to help, because no help is coming, or very little, from the Republican Party. So as a result, it's up to ordinary citizens. You're doing your part. We're doing our part. What can an ordinary guy who goes, listen, you know, I'd like to help these guys. What can I do to relieve the suffering of their families? What can I do to make their lives a little better, even as they go through this Biden administration incarceration and torture?
Well, I want to thank you and Debbie again for your generous $100,000 donation to what's called the Patriot Freedom Project. It's patriotfreedomproject.com. You guys really helped, you know, seed the initial major donation there. They keep pulling in donations every day. There is huge need for these families just for basics. I mean, almost all of these people have lost their jobs. They were fired immediately. Businesses have been shut down. Of course, the men who are detained can't support their families. Even the ones who are released are on home detention or home incarceration. They still can't work. So these families really need support. And so I'm so grateful, and I know the family members are too, for what you and Debbie have done. And that's really the best way to help. We're also helping, that fund is helping defray some legal costs. Of course, there aren't a lot of lawyers stepping up to help these folks pro bono. And so that is really doing a lot of the heavy lifting financially. And it's just one of the women, I know you had her on, Cynthia Hughes, who's a family member, one of the detainees. So they've sort of taken it on themselves, and but it wouldn't have been possible without your early generous donation. So again, thank you to you and Debbie.
Well, Julie, that means a lot. Our goal was, you know, we want to ask people to give, and it would make no sense to do that without doing what we can. So the website is patriotfreedomproject.com. Julie and I both know the person who is dispensing those funds. She's completely trustworthy. She's a working class woman married to a cop, and these are people who have a very good, close to the ground assessment of who needs what. So there's no money that's going to go to administrative costs or any sort of rigmarole. You're given money to direct needs. And so anything that you can do, guys, to help out here would be greatly appreciated. Julie, what an eye-opening conversation. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep up the great work that you're doing.
You too, Dinesh. Thanks so much for covering this.
'Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away.